Hello, welcome to another up close video. So today's one is looking at a brand new collection from Creative Expressions for Sam Poole, who's a designer for them. She was designing for them years ago and then she had a break for a bit, but she's back now, and I think this is her second collection since she's been back. And I actually had the whole thing, so I thought I would show you in one of my up close videos. This year I'm hoping to do more up close videos with Creative Expressions and Cosmic Shimmer products, as well as all the tonic ones that I usually do, just to mix it up a bit, because I feel like I keep posting them and they're all tonic and then tonic and tonic. So, you know, I thought there might be a few of you who are interested in an up-close look at Creative Expressions goodies as well. So, in this new release of hers, she has got 5 die sets, which I think are her first ever dies. She's got 3 A5 clear stamp sets, and they're the gorgeous photopolymer stamps, and then 2 grey rubber pre-mounted stamps as well. So these are fantastic for mixed media and background building and stuff. So I will walk you through all of this, and then I've actually got 8 different samples to show you as well. I've had great fun using this. Sam's style is very vintagey, but I wanted to mix it up a bit and throw in some bright colours and stuff, and I had a great time playing with it all. And I really do think her 3 background dies are fabulous for all kinds of crafting. They lend themselves really nicely towards the vintage kind of style, but they also go perfectly with bright bold colours and lots of cosmic shimmer and sparkle and all that sort of stuff. So I will show you my samples towards the end of the video. But let's firstly look at her background stamps. So there are 2 different designs. All of the sort of little pre-cut mounted rubber stamps like this from Creative Expressions, there's also Andy Skinner's ones, are all kind of like an A6 sort of a size, so they'll fit nicely onto your smaller cards, but you can also stamp them twice. And with this one, which is the Wildflowers, it's kind of a patchy design. It's very distressed, so you can't really tell if you stamp it twice. You can't really tell where the join is. And also with the script one, they've deliberately designed it so it is horizontal, so that if you're making a 5x7 card or something that is larger than an A6 card, you can actually stamp it above each other to give a longer section. And obviously you can stamp more of it over here to kind of give the illusion that the writing is going on further, longer lines of it as well. So they're really great for extending too, but having them in a small size, it kind of makes you use part of them as well, which I think is a really nice way to use background stamps, just inking up little areas of it or pressing down small areas of it to get a patchy kind of design, or a more vintagey design, or just a more distressed and arty kind of a look, really, because you're just having parts of a background rather than the whole thing stamped out each time. So I do really love having the pre-mounted rubber stamps for that kind of a technique. And they are slightly bigger than the images on the packaging. I'll show you the images closely though, because it's easier to see on the packaging what they look like. So this is the Wildflowers, which is really gorgeous. I have really enjoyed heat embossing this and watercolouring it in with my pixie powders. And then we've also got this one, which is the French script, which is, I mean, if you read French, you might be able to figure out what it says, but I was never very good at French at school, so I don't know what it says, but you might be able to decipher it if you can actually read French. But it's a really gorgeous scripty cursive kind of a font, so even if you're just printing or stamping out patches of it, I think it gives a really nice sort of effect with that gorgeous scripty. And so then the stamps are slightly bigger than the image shown on the packaging, so you can see just a tiny bit bigger. They've just shrunken it down, so you know the stamp is the size of the packaging and they've shrunken it down a little. And they actually come with this backing on them, so I've still got the backing on mine, even though I've used them multiple times. I quite like to keep the backing on because a lot of the time I'm either heat embossing with background stamps, or I want to just press little areas on, so you sort of ink it up and press in different places. And if you've taken the paper off, or you don't keep the paper, you're pressing onto the cling mount, and if I ever want to use that one day, I don't want to make it dirty, because the cling mount will then cling to an acrylic block or your stamping platform, or any kind of stamping press, or you know, any kind of thing that you use to stamp with, really. But if you can So you're supposed to peel this paper off, which is like the backing paper that's protecting it. But with some of my stamps, I've kept it, and I didn't on that one. I'm not sure I've got one near me. But I keep this backing paper and put it back on. If I have used it on a stamping platform or an acrylic block, I keep the paper and try to put it back on. It doesn't completely stay, but it just keeps it a little bit more protected if you're just going to use it in your hand, which I do quite like to do a lot. So, but also with these, if you wanted to protect that cling backing whilst it's in your packaging, just take a piece of acetate that will fit the size of this, and then you can cling it to the acetate and put it back in the packaging. Or if you've got any of those like ring binder systems that have those thick sheets of acetate, these should stick straight onto those once you've pulled that backing off. So they're good for storing as well. You know, they could just stick straight onto whatever kind of storage that you have, which is brilliant. And they're also a nice kind of smaller size, so they should fit in the CD storage wallets if you store your stamps like that as well. You could just have them all like that, or if you're keeping all the backings on, because they'll be protected, you could just have them all standing up in a pot. If you do like lots of art journaling and stuff, and you just want to grab for a quick texture for a background, you could always keep them like that as well. I do like to keep them in the packaging though, because it's better for videos if I can show you the real packaging that they come in. So those are the two background stamps, which are really gorgeous designs. I really have been enjoying these. I love that distressed look on them as well. And then she has also got 3 A5 stamp sets, which again go along this gorgeous vintagey theme, but it's all sort of nature inspired, and like is it botanists and like maybe not quite entomologists, but all that kind of thing. And you can actually make some really beautiful journals out of this as well. Like Natalie from the design team has done a fantastic little journal, and I think Sam said she's done some journals as well. So I'm sure you will have seen those on the telly or on Creative Expression's website too. But I did stick to cards just because I love making cards, but it's really great for journaling and stuff as well. I can't wait to actually use some of these in my art journal, because I think all of these little date ones are really interesting too. But anyway, there are 3 different sets. We have got Butterfly Walk, which has got gorgeous like little botanicals, kind of out of like an old-fashioned gardening book where you're kind of trying to work out what kind of plants in your garden. So you've got gorgeous little ones like that. You've got this Hessian one. I didn't actually use that. I tried to use as many of the stamps as I could, but there's still a few that I didn't quite squeeze onto my cards because I had favourites and I kept going back to them. But you get that gorgeous little patch of, it could be Hessian, it could be like really pulled apart cheeseclothy kind of texture, but a nice small little patch of it. So again, it makes you use it multiple times in different areas rather than just having one solid block of it. But you could actually, if you wanted a mount for a sentiment or a word, you could stamp that and just trim around it or rip around it and have it as a little map behind a word or a sentiment as well. I'll read all the words out afterwards, so I'll go through the images first. You've got this gorgeous distressed looking tag, which has the hole as part of the image, so you could easily just use a pokey tool to poke that through, or if you've got a hole punch that's the right size, you could punch the hole through as well, and use that for any kind of little tag or sentiment for whatever project you're working on. You've got a gorgeous little butterfly. I do love butterflies. Then you've got this gorgeous collage stamp. It's a decent size. Obviously the stamps are bigger than the packaging again, so it's a pretty decent size, this one. It is about roughly 3 inches, which is roughly 7.5 centimetres, by the tallest point is about 4 inches or 10 centimetres, so a really decent sized design for this one, and it's really lovely to colour in. I used it on one of the cards I was making this morning actually, and I just coloured the butterfly in on it and added a few sort of dots elsewhere, and I think it looks really nice. It looks great incorporated into a background, and maybe do some more overstamping to build the design out a little bit, but it also looks fabulous just stamped in black and white and like ripped around or cut around as well. So a versatile kind of, more of a focal point, but you could easily use it for a background as well, and you could even stamp it twice and cut the butterfly out and 3D it up too. And then the last botanical kind of image on here is this like a grass sort of a stamp, and it's got little essence of sort of text around it, again from kind of like an old-fashioned book for looking up plants and things in. Then you've also got the definition of botanical, and it says an adjective relating to botany, botanical specimens, noun, a substance obtained from a plant and used typically in medicine. So you've got the little meaning of botanical there from a dictionary. You've got lots of little words that you can use. You've got seeds, specimen, notes, observations, grow, collector of beautiful things, and then you've even got the word postcard as well, which you could use to, I mean, this does look like sort of like a half of a postcard kind of a design, so you could stamp this twice, you could stamp this, add some of these other ones and make it into a postcard. You could just use this for when you are making a postcard as well, but I've really been enjoying mixing and matching the 3 sets together as well and building up some designs that way. So that is the first one, which is called Butterfly Walk. Then the second one is called Nature Finds, and it's got beautiful pansies and little tiny florals, bumblebees as well. There's 3 little bees on here. You've got this kind of cow parsley kind of design, or it could be an agapanthus. Is that the name? I can't remember the name. I think it's an agapanthus. It's on my neck curtains in front of me. But it's either cow parsley or an agapanthus, or is there another name? I'm not an expert on plants, so I'm not 100% sure. And then you've also got like a fern sort of leaf in this one as well. So if I hold it up close, walk you through, you've got this gorgeous little double-edged rectangular box, which more of those kind of designs feature on the next stamp set as well. So you've got lots of options. You've got this one is kind of the side view of like a dandelion or a daisy perhaps before it's bloomed. Then you've also got a pansy, an opened little kind of daisy flower, another one of these side views, another little side view more in like a silhouette almost, another pansy. I think they're the same design, just different sizes, so you can do an all over background. You could just stamp pansies all over and colour them with your alcohol pens. I think that would look really nice. This gorgeous little one, which is kind of like a baby cow parsley sort of plant. Then you've got another of these daisy kind of flowers. That is actually different, they're different to each other. You've got a tiny little bumblebee, and then you've got the bigger bumblebee, which is the same bumblebee but flipped the opposite way and a different size. Then within this little cow parsley one, I hope it is a cow parsley. What does it say it is? I don't think that's actually what it is. Anyway, within this little design, you've got a tiny little bee in there as well. It's actually part of that stamp, but if you did want to use the bee separately, you could easily snip your stamp up just to get that little bee out as well. I really like this one though. I've used this one a lot, and I love the head of that. I love those kind of flowers. And then you've also got a section of script. So if you didn't want to go for the script background stamp, if you go for this stamp set, it's got a little bit of script in there as well, which is kind of, I don't know if it's more of a detailed kind of a script. No, maybe it is similar kind of script. Not sure if it's the same person who's written it, but yeah, similar kind of looking script on there. And that one is really gorgeous. I actually heat embossed it in white onto vellum. It looks brilliant. Also just stamping it in black onto a background looks brilliant as well. Then you've also got this kind of like a little wildflower with sort of seed pods on it, and the sort of fern branch as well, also 2 of my favourites from this set. Then little word wise, you've got field notes, nature finds, wildflowers, bloom, and then this larger sentiment says nature is not a place to visit, it is home. And then you've got bonjour in a scripty font, and you've got fig 1, fig 2, fig 3. So like in any kind of scientific or botanical, I guess, kind of report, you'd have figures like 1, 2 and 3, or it could be in like a flower collecting book maybe, where you've got pressed flowers. You can have figure 1, 2 and 3, so you can identify which flower is what and stuff. A little number as well, so it can look like you've numbered your specimens like that as well. So loads of different stamps in here that are really great for focal sort of images, or for adding onto to build up a larger background, or for even using on smaller little backgrounds or images to go with one of the die sets that I will show you later on as well. So that is the second stamp set. And then the third stamp set is this one, which is called Dates from the Past. I really like this one. I really love old-fashioned date roller stamps. I have quite a few of them. You know, these sort of ones. I love using them in my art journal to actually put the real date on. But I also just like the look of them as a design element as well. So having lots of different ones from different years and, you know, all different sort of scripty fonts and stuff is really nice. I've really been enjoying placing these in different places on my designs as well. It's sometimes if you just think you've got an empty area that just needs something else, some sort of like random number or date can just sort of fill in that little gap for you. So as well as this little rectangular box on this one, which is this size, you've also got extra rectangular boxes and other shapes on this one. So this is like the smallest, then there's a sort of a medium size and this larger long rectangle as well. And you also have a single lined squared off sort of a ticket shape with a rectangle with the corners cut off, and then a circle as well. And then you've got tons of different words, numbers, dates in here as well. So I'll try and read them all out if they're legible enough. You've got no, so number, Paris, number 1911, Paris 1889, 13th of July 1922, papier and letters, number 16.313, that could be kind of like a library numbering system. You've got 40844, a gorgeous little flower cluster which is really pretty. I think this is 1904, so 1904. Number 48. With this one you could actually just use that small number as well if you wanted to and write your own number on there. You've got Paris, 11th of April 1893, number 261, 4782, 10th of December 1874 perhaps, or 21, not sure, the 18th of June 1936, 780253, 131851, number 9190, Paris Lily. That's probably means something in Paris, in French. This one's 1842, there's 320900, 4th of June 1921, 13th of October 1875, the 31st of July 1937, 30th of April 1999, or it could be 1929. And then also 11th of June 1816, and then you've got carte postale as well. So I hope I kind of read them right. Some of them are a little bit difficult to read just because in that kind of scripty writing or cursive writing, it's sometimes hard to read numbers. Ones kind of look like sevens and stuff. But yeah, that's all of the gorgeous little stamps that you get in here, and they're really lovely sizes, and I really love the way some of them have got lines on them, and some of them are more like typewriter font, some of them are kind of aged as well with bits missing. So really, really lovely. I've really been enjoying these ones, just plopping them in different places on my cards. Then we have got her 5 different die sets. So there's kind of these 2 that are slightly different, and then you've got 3 backgrounds as well. So this is her Shabby Basics, and it is the, they're all in the Shabby Basics range, and this is her Tattered Tags die set. You've probably seen me use a couple of times in videos these tags, which are the Lisa Horton ones, and they are the tags and banners, because it's got a few banners inside as well. These are a slightly different dimension to those, so if you're thinking I've already got a tag set, they are slightly different dimensions. These are very tall and skinny, whereas these actually get shorter as you go down the sizes, because they're not just a straight edge, they've got this gorgeous deckled edge to them. So also if you've bought the Tim Holtz deckled edged trimmer, it will go perfectly with having deckled edge tags to go with them as well. And also these ones actually have the hole they've got the little piece of metal that pops down with the hole on them, whereas the Lisa Horton ones you had to actually hole punch the hole yourself. But these actually have the hole, and you have different hole reinforcers as well. You've got 2 larger ones and 2 smaller ones, and you have one of each. So you've got a straight edged one and also the deckled edged one as well. And the smaller ones are I'm presuming designed to go on the smaller tags, but if you did just want a smaller hole, you can also put the small ones on, because all these holes are the same size, so you can put the big reinforcer on all of them and it will work perfectly. But if you wanted a smaller hole in there, say for example you're using a really thin kind of twine or more sort of yarn or something, you might want a smaller hole rather than, you know, like a bigger hole to fit some wider ribbon through. So you could actually use the smaller hole reinforcer and it would just make the hole smaller for you as well. So these are her gorgeous tag dies, which I've really been enjoying, and you can even shorten them as well. So I was doing a bit of partial die cutting, so although they come in this height, you can actually shorten them. You know, you would cut this tag first, and it doesn't matter if you haven't got enough card to go to the bottom, and then once you've got your tag cut, you then just line it up. It won't line up perfectly, but you can just line it up like this and try to just cut the first, like run that through your machine so you just feel it go over the first bump, and then run it back out again, and then it should give you the deckled edge on the end, and you can't really tell that I've done that. It just looks like that was the shape of the tag. So it's really easy to do that if you want to shorten a tag as well. You can see I've taken maybe 1.5 inches off the height of that, just to give a shorter kind of design, because this largest tag, I don't know if it says the sizes on here. Oh, it does. The largest tag is 8 by 15.8 centimetres, or if you want it in inches, it is about 3¼ inches by 6¼ inches. So really decent sized tag, and it also tells you on the front that that these are 1 centimetre across as well. The smallest die is 1 centimetre across. So it's good that it tells you the largest and the smallest on there. And they all just sort of graduate down in sizes, and you can see they get like shorter as well. So it's quite nice to have a different selection of heights and stuff. And this kind of size, if you sell things that you make, that would be perfect as a price tag as well. Gorgeous little size for a price tag. So that is the tags die set. It's the tattered tags. Then we've got the vintage slide die set. So this has got a gorgeous die that creates one of those vintage slides. I think they're usually plastic. I seem to remember my granddad having lots of them, and you have the negative of the film from the camera, and then it's like plastic, and then you can put them in a slide projector and move them around, and so project them onto the wall and stuff. Or you could just keep your negative safe in them. But yeah, it's a really cool die, and it also just makes a change. Like, there's been quite a big trend for quite a few years really of the Polaroid kind of looking dies, but this just gives you like a different alternative, and it cuts it and gives you the score line on there. So all you've got to do is fold that score line and then burnish the fold down, and you've got your what's it called, get the name right, vintage slide straight away, that you can do lots of different things with. I think I have mostly just been using it as if it is kind of like a different version of having a Polaroid, but there's loads of different ways that you could use this. In the catalogue, I don't know if it's on the packaging, no it's not, but in the catalogue there's a sample, so it'll probably be on the website, of punching out the hole here and adding it as like a little keychain. So you could have it hanging off the front of a journal that you've made, or you could have them in pockets inside a journal. I've just been using them on the front of my cards as well. But loads of different ways to use them, different ideas that you could do with them. You could cut a few of them and put them inside each other and staple the spine and make like a little book kind of thing with them. Or you can just fold it in half and stick it shut with something inside it. You can either use the actual like film kind of a die and cut your piece and stamp onto that and then stick that inside. You could not stick the top of it and make it as a pocket, and you could even have this die in there that way and have it as like a little pocket where the little tags can come in and out. You could put multiples in there. You could even use the actual tags and put them in there as well. But the way I've been using it is just putting tape on the inside of this. Then I have actually been adding bits of Sam's background dies that I've snipped up and like having them poking in the corner. And then I've just been cutting a rectangle of card, stamping on it with some of the gorgeous stamps, and then sticking it behind the aperture and then just sticking it flat and stuck together like that. But again, you don't have to stick it flat. You could actually use some low profile foam tape and make it a little shaker in there. Loads of different ways that you could use this gorgeous die. And I just think it's like a really nice new alternative to a Polaroid die. You're going back further than Polaroids, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these would have been around way before a Polaroid would have. But yeah. It's just a nice new alternative to using a Polaroid on your crafting projects, and also great for pocket scrapbooking like Project Life, because yes, it is smaller than 3 inches wide. It is about 2 3/4 inches or about 7 centimeters square. So it would fit really nicely in any of your pocket kind of scrapbooking, especially if you have the 3x3 pocket pages. They would fit really nicely in those, and you'd have the little bit of space around them so they can kind of float a little bit in the pocket. So it would work really nicely for that kind of a project too. So that is the vintage slide. Then the 3 final die sets, and my favourite die sets, are these gorgeous background dies. So we've got cheesecloth, dappled ovals and rustic honeycomb, and I really love them because they're not just a geometric pattern die, they are distressed and vintagey. They've got little bits missing out of them, and they cut like a dream as well. And also the every time I've cut them, all of the pieces have stayed in the die, so then you can just like bash the die on the side of your table or the arm of your chair or something and get all of the pieces out quite quickly, and then you instantly have the gorgeous die cuts already done for you. So I've been using bits of each of these, so that's why they're not complete, but I can show you exactly what they look like. So this is the cheesecloth one, and look how beautifully it cuts out, and it's got all the bits missing. This looks fabulous cut out of painty, inky backgrounds as well, so don't just think you have to cut it out of a solid colour. Do a wacky, crazy background, and even if you don't like it, you could then die cut it with this, and you know, you might like the look of it then because you're just getting it in small amounts. Or you could even die cut it out of that if you don't like it, add some gilding polish or matte chalk polish or something over the top, and these work fantastically as stencils as well. Not so much this one. I did use it on one of the cards, but the openings are kind of small, so it was a little bit hard to actually see the pattern. But the other two are fantastic for using as stencils, and then you even have the piece left afterwards to use, which is really nice, and I've actually been using those pieces on some of my cards. So this is the cheesecloth, and you can see, I think it is, yeah, I think it's the actual size. Oh, I think they've actually used the die on the front rather than the die cut, maybe? Yeah, it's backwards. But anyway, it is the actual size on the packaging that you see. And they are the gorgeous, like, coppery, bronzy coloured dies that Creative Expressions always bring out as well. And really good quality. It's really sturdy. Oh, and actually, these packagings, because I don't usually do these up-close videos with Creative Expressions, if you struggle to get anything out of the packaging, like the dies are stuck to the cardboard with a piece of tape, so you might struggle to get the die out. I've already taken this one out before, but if you do struggle, you can pull the cardboard out as well. However, it does sometimes get caught on these corners, so what I like to do a lot of the time is just take some strong scissors and actually cut off this top portion of the packaging. Sometimes I cut it here, sometimes you need to cut it a bit further down, and it actually helps you to easily be able to get that piece of cardboard out then as well if your dies are all stuck to it and you want to slide it in and out, but keep them in their strong plastic packaging. I just find cutting that top bit off is much easier, and it also makes it slightly shorter. So if you're storing these in tubs on a shelf, you're going to cut off like an inch, inch and a half kind of height of them too if you cut the tops off. Just be careful that you don't cut yourself on the plastic, or you know, your scissors don't slip as you're cutting. But I thought it would be good to tell you that little trick, because it always helps me out. I do it to a lot of my packaging. But this is the gorgeous die. You can see it's a really nice sturdy die, hardly bends at all, because it's really nice, full of metal basically, to get all of that detail and it to be accurate and everything. Really, really lovely. I've really been enjoying these dies, and I think for all the sort of modern kind of cards that I like to make, it's perfect for them as well as the vintagey kind of ones. And you also, even with these funny fall away pieces, you might even find shapes in there that you might want to use for different things as well. So this one almost looks like a little puzzle piece there. Yeah, so that is the cheesecloth one. Then we've got the dappled ovals one, which I really like this one. It seems to remind me of something, but I can't think what it reminds me of. Maybe a sponge or something, but I really like this design too. I've actually ripped along the edge of this one because I was using a piece on a card that I'll show you. But again, it's not just the little ovals everywhere, it's also got random little pieces, extra little holes in some places as well, to give a really random kind of look. And it has, yeah, that's a good thing about all of these actually. They have their edge already on them. They're a gorgeous randomly cut edge, so you can actually use this gorgeous edge as a border on a card and just have that raggedy edge of like a cheesecloth or burlap kind of panel, which is just really lovely. Because some, I can't think what dies they are. They might have been really old, maybe it was Spellbinder's dies, and they did it so that you could extend the design, but they didn't have the edge on the design, and then it was a little bit annoying if you just wanted to use it as it was, because you'd have to like snip around it. But so I love that this has already got all of the edge already cut out perfectly for you. You just run it through your machine and it's done, you know, and you can snip it into different pieces. You can use long widths of it, you can use short widths of it, you can cut it into a square, you can snip into it, create your own holes in here to have different things poking through. You could snip out a larger hole in here and have a butterfly behind it. All sorts of different things you can do with these. And for this example, I had ripped along the length of it and was using a strip of it on a card as well. So I really like this. Or maybe it's like a bee's nest it's kind of reminding me of. You know, when they open the top of it and it's got like all the honey inside it. Because I know that's supposed to look like honeycomb, but when it's got all the honey in it, it doesn't quite look hexagonal. Yeah, I think it kind of reminds me of that. But anyway, this is the dappled ovals one. And I really love with all dies actually that they give you this gorgeous beveled edge, because it really looks professional when you're looking from the top of the die cut. When you look underneath, you kind of get the sharp edges on there, but when you're looking from the top, you get that gorgeous beveled edge, and it's so smooth to touch as well. It's really lovely. And this works fabulously as a stencil too. So that's the dappled ovals. And then the final one, which I think is my favourite because I do love my honeycomb designs, and this is the rustic honeycomb. Again, that gorgeous bronzy colour of dye. And also I didn't save any of the pieces out of this one, but you could save all of these pieces because they're all irregular. I don't think any of them are regular hexagons. They're all slightly off to give that rustic kind of look, or they're double blobby kind of shapes or triple blobby kind of shapes. So they make really interesting little extra accents to add onto a journal page, put in a background, maybe even put in a shaker card as well. So you can really utilise the waste from these too. But I just love the look of this one. And just the fact that it's already got those like worn away pieces as well. It just gives it such a lovely look, because I love that look of this kind of distress thing, but when you have a perfect die cut and you try to achieve that yourself, it never really looks right, because you can't get the little curved edges of bits, and you know, it never looks right. So having a die that already does it for you, I think is really lovely. I can't wait to use this more. I've used it on maybe 3 or 4 of the samples, I think, and great stencil as well, works fabulously as a stencil. On one of the cards that I'll show you, I used it as a stencil with the powder blue gilding polish, and so then once I finished stenciling with it, I just added the gilding polish to the rest of it so that I could just use it as a piece. And you can see I've snipped parts of it off. I snipped diagonally so that it was a longer kind of design. Oh, if I show you on this, you can see if I've snipped out diagonally, it gives you a longer design than, you know, using it this way, to go down the length of a card as well. So really lovely that you can snip into it and use all these little pieces. Like, I've got this little bit left. If I cut this into a couple of pieces, you've instantly got little elements to stick onto a journal page or onto an already made background that you've already done as well. So those are all of the new product that Sam Poole has brought out with Creative Expressions, and I'll be back in 1 second to show you the samples that I've done with them. Okay, so I've got 8 different samples to show you. I tried to go a little bit vintagey on 2 or 3 of them, but I just love bright colours too much, so I toned it down on these 2. I did use more like pastel-y colours, but I still think it works so brilliantly with all of these stamps. You don't have to just do a vintage style, which is fantastic because they work perfectly for vintage style, but if you like to play around with different styles, I think these stamps really lend themselves to that kind of experimentation. So I'll zoom in slightly on this one. This is where I have used all 3 of them as a stencil, those background dies. I think you can see, yeah, you can see this is the cheesecloth design. You've got the little ovals in here, and then you can see the hexagons all over the background. So I used 2 matte chalk polishes. Firstly, I put down Harbour Haze, and I just used the applicator to brush it across lightly, so I got this kind of brush strokey effect in the background. Then I took Sky Blue and did the same thing, but just in different patchy areas. Then I took the hexagon die, this one, and the powder blue gilding polish, and I did the hexagon all over where I wanted it in the background. Then I took the ovally background one, this one, and I took some green parakeet opal polish, and I did this in the background. You can see these little ovals here. Then I came back in with a piece of the Hessian or the cheesecloth background, and I came back in with that Harbour Haze matte chalk polish again. So you've got the matte first, then a normal polish, then an opal polish, and then some more matte on top. So it kind of makes you wonder which layer was done first, which is quite interesting. And then to just add a little bit more to the background, I took that French script grey rubber background stamp, and I actually used tumbled glass Distress Oxide to stamp over the whole background, and it actually stuck onto the polish, which I'm really impressed with. So yeah, just randomly stamped it in a few different places just to give the background some extra texture on there too. And then all I did was stamp that sort of seed pod kind of design in black ink 3 times, drew a scribbly border around it using a fine liner black pen, stamped out the little bumblebee and cut around it, and then just used one of the words from the set, just having wildflowers on there. I just thought it makes a nice little notelet kind of card. And then I really loved how that background was turning out, so I did another card using that same background, but I didn't do the matte polish on top again. But I did, however, use the cheeseclothy Hessian piece that I was using to put the matte polish onto this card. So you can see there's matte polish on some of it, but it's white in the rest of it. And I quite liked that patchy look, so I thought I'd use that actual die cut that I was using as a stencil on this card. Then in the background here as well, you can see I've used one of the tag dies with the wrinkly edges, and I've used the white reinforcer on there, and I've also used that smaller script stamp that's in one of the A5 stamp sets and heat embossed in white onto the vellum, and I think that gives a really lovely look. And doing it white onto vellum gives a really crisp kind of look, but if you wanted a more vintagey look, you could use a kind of more aged sort of parchment that's more of a creamy colour, and maybe use gold embossing powder, or just stamp on it with a brown permanent ink or something to give a more vintagey version of it. Then I've also taken this sort of cow parsley sort of stamp and stamped it out, trimmed around it, left that little bee on there, and also added in some more little bees as well, just to go with the kind of theme. Then I've used that gorgeous vintage slide and stamped out that little stamp that was at the top of one of the A5 stamp sets that kind of looks like it's out of a botany kind of book where you can look up what kind of flowers are in your garden. And then I've also snipped off a little bit of this, which I used in the background of this card and this card as a stencil, and I just snipped off a tiny bit and added it behind. And then I've stuck the whole thing closed with those two pieces in there and added one of the dates onto the slide as well. And then just used Collector of Beautiful Things as the kind of main focal words on this one. And this is actually a DL card too, so I wanted to show how you can obviously do all sorts of different sizes of cards. It doesn't have to just be the small cards that I like to make. You can do your DL cards or slimline cards as well. Then I did I tried to go a little bit more vintagey, so I was using the wildflower background stamp, and I wanted to pull out some embossing powders and like heat emboss it. So I was using the Lava Black Aurora and the Malachite Fire Aurora. I'm not sure if you can get these like online really. I think you'd probably have to go to one of your local craft shops that might have been stocking stuff for a while and might still have some of these lying around. But I really love these colours because they're kind of like a black, but they've got a mica in them, so then the mica reflects off of it and gives a really cool colour. To get this more kind of like toned down pearlescent colouring in the background of these two, I was using my pixie powders because I hadn't used them in a while and I wanted to bring a couple out. So for the green heat embossing I was using emerald green, and for the reddy kind of heat embossing I was using the Scarlet Mist, but I didn't want them to be bright colours like these come out. I wanted them to be more of a vintage tone because I was trying to go for sort of more of a vintage look. So I took my Dusty Mink Shimmer Shaker, which is basically a pixie powder, but it's just a solid colour with the mica in, and it's in like this small little shaker pot. So all I did was shake some of this into these two colours when I had them on my mat to work with, and it just gave it more of a vintagey kind of tone. It's a really lovely colour, this one, this mink colour. I've really been enjoying this colour. I've got the Luna paste in it as well, and I think it's just beautiful. It just gives a really natural kind of a look. It also goes really nicely with pumice stone distress ink. It's that kind of grey brown kind of colour. It works really nicely with that ink pad, and it also works really nicely with, this is the Creme Brulee Colour Cloud blending ink as well. It works really nicely with that too. This is more of a brown than a grey brown, so but it works really nicely together. And then to kind of deepen up some of the brown tones on this and age the cardstock, because I started with white card on both of these, I was just using some of that Creme Brulee and also some walnut stain distress ink as well, just to bring in some like darker tones of colour. But I really like how these two turned out, and the background is just so opulent. It kind of reminds me of maybe wallpaper or curtains that you might see in like the Tudor times and like in Hampton Court Palace and stuff. Gorgeous like large floral designs in these rich kind of reds and golden brown sort of tones. But I really loved how this one turned out, and I just used that stamp in the background and I watercoloured all of it. Then I did a bit of the ink blending over the top to sort of tone down the white that was in the background. I also just used the Dusky Mink colour by itself to colour in the leaves on both of these, and then I just mixed the colour with the mink for the flowers to mute it down a little bit. And also in the background I took the French script background stamp and used the walnut stain ink and stamped it as well. So there's a really subtle script just going in the background as well, which I think is really nice. Then I've taken that film die from the vintage slide and I've just done it 3 times down a card, and I've used multiple different stamps from the different stamp sets. I've got one of the numbers here, I've got that gorgeous cow parsley, one of the little bumblebees, a butterfly, a couple of the small little designs, one of the dates on there as well, just to make it look a little bit different and build up the sort of designs on the slides. And then to match the slides into the background, I then took a post-it note, I ripped it in half so I had two halves of it, and I masked off like this so that I could press the ink pad onto my sticky clear ink, so that I could press the die cut onto my sticky clear ink pad, and then just heat emboss the edges. And it came out, I obviously didn't press hard enough on my sticky ink pad, but it came out a little bit patchy. So like here it's nice and melted, but in other places it's more pitted. And I was going to go over it again, but I actually really like how that looks. I think it gives it more of a vintage kind of effect. And I thought this kind of having the shiny on the edges looks more like a film reel, because the edges of an actual film are slightly, well, they're usually black, but they're just slightly darker, and obviously a film is really nice and shiny as well, so I thought it gives that kind of a look to the sort of negatives, if you will, to kind of go with this design. And then I've just layered them up higgledy-piggledy, and then splattered on a little bit more of that mink shimmer shaker, and I also did water on there as well to give the sort of light water splotches. And then because I like working on white card blanks, I always find when I work on a cream card blank, even if I'm doing a vintagey effect, I never like how it turns out, so I always just try to go for a white one. So to tie the white card blank in and make it not look weird, because everything else is sort of a more of a muted down browny kind of tone, I then just bring in something that is white. So I've got the sentiment that says nature is not a place to visit, it is home, and then I've got the butterfly as well. And I did also draw on a butterfly trail with a white gel pen as well to bring the white in. So that's my first attempt at something a bit more vintagey. And then I did this one where I was using the tag to cut it, and again I cut it down a little bit. I don't know if I did them the same size. No, you see I cut this one even shorter than the other one that I showed you, just to make an even squatter kind of tag, and then it fits perfectly on my favourite size of card. I also cut the honeycomb die from craft card and snipped it up so that I just had a smaller portion, and I've wrapped it with twine as well. And this is just the green version of the background, did it exactly the same way as the red one with the script stamping in the background too. And then I've just used a few of those like wildflower kind of stamps on there, again black onto white so it ties the white card into my white card blank. And then I've used one of the frames and I've done bonjour, and I've masked off, there was another word that was next to nature, and I masked it off so it says bonjour nature. And then I've also used that botanical definition in the background of that, stamped it a couple of times at different angles with the distress ink just to give it a little bit of texture, and added a bit of twine to the top of the tag where I've put all of the hole reinforcers, and I just inked it slightly to make it look a little bit more vintagey to go with the tag as well. So I really like how that one turned out too. They're kind of getting a little bit lost, these elements, but I do really like it. I think it looks modern vintage, if that makes any sense. It's kind of taking more of a modern design of a card but using vintage elements and colours. And then I loved making that tag so much I wanted to make another tag. So this one I was again trying to bring in maybe a technique that I would use on one of my cards, but trying to bring in more muted vintagey colours. So I did a clear emboss technique. So the background of the tag is clear heat embossing with, I just did part of the script, it comes up to about here, and repeating it down the tag. The main big scripty stamp that is, that I've used on there. Then I inked a bit with the walnut stain distress ink to bring some of the colour across the card, but leaving this very edge white, because obviously I like my white, so it goes from the muted colours into the white tones. Then and also adding the colour over the top makes the embossing pop because you use clear embossing. And to give an even darker tone, I was just using another deeper brown pigment ink pad. I stamped some of these little floral elements from the date stamp set, and I also inked a little bit with that just to bring in that deep colour and kind of camouflage those designs a little bit because they were very stark against my background. Then this is where I had used a bit of this background and I had ripped off the edge piece of it so that it just adds something extra down the side of the tag. And this is also where I have used part of this as well. So this was the piece I was using as a stencil, and obviously I just finished colouring it to, you know, actually have it as a die cut to use, and then I just really snipped into it to give it this cool jaggedy kind of effect, and it just brings your eye down the card. And then to tie this powder blue piece in, I took some of the same powder blue polish, watered it down and splattered it in a few places on the background, and I also splattered some of the walnut stain distress ink onto here as well to sort of bring in that brown across the card too, so it wasn't too stark over this side. And then for my focal elements, I used the round shape that was in the dates stamp set, and I just used it as a focal sort of topper kind of design really. I put the butterfly in one, a flower in another, and a bumblebee in another. Then I used figures 1, 2 and 3 to stamp on them as well, and I did the clear heat embossing as well. So I let them completely dry, then I clear heat embossed that cow parsley over the top and then inked it as well, so it gives a really cool layered kind of effect. I used to love doing this kind of thing and I always forget to do it. I love doing it on pattern paper as well. So I thought I would give that a go again, and then I've just finished it with a Dymo label and some light blue seam binding that goes really nicely with that powder blue, and I've just used one of the dates on here as well. You know, like I was saying earlier, sometimes you just have a little gap and you think it needs something else, and just adding one of those little dates on it works really nicely. So that is that tag. Then 3 left. I did this one trying to use more of my modern style, again using it more as if it was a Polaroid rather than a vintage slide. The background was done using matte chalk paints. So these are some of the Cosmic Shimmer matte chalk paints. Pacific Teal, Jade Mint and Azure Mist are the ones I was using. And I was just doing that technique, I think it was called Paint Fusion, or that was the Sheena's Paint Fusion, where you had the small flat brush and you dipped half of it in the darker colour and half of it in the lighter colour, except instead of doing it properly I was just spinning the brush around in a circle, so you get the darker colour in the middle and the lighter colour on the outside, or vice versa, depending how you loaded your brush up, and that was just to give a cool background. Then once that was dry, I took the wildflower background stamp and stamped it over the top of it, and then used this sparkly white embossing powder, which is the Brilliant Sparkle Frosty Dawn Cosmic Shimmer embossing powder, to give that pattern all over the back. Then I've used the green with the ovals, what's it called again? Dappled ovals, and I've used the blue parakeet on top of there. So this is the piece I was using to create the backgrounds on those first 2 cards, and then I obviously had to use the actual piece as well. So I trimmed part of it down so it was more of a square design, and then I also cut into it so that I could poke the vintage slide into it as well, and I used a little bit of the excess inside the little vintage slide frame. I think that looks really nice, bringing the pieces inside the frame. I used a little bit of the fern stamp, some of that gorgeous cow parsley, and I also added the butterfly, and I felt like the butterfly was getting lost, so I stamped it again and stuck it over the top, so the butterfly is kind of coming out of the frame as well. I've used the little no for the number from the date stamp set, and then used one of the numbers on there, and then just use my Dymo to do butterfly wishes. So I always use this kind of a card where I've done something like butterfly wishes as a birthday card, because it kind of looks like it says birthday wishes but you just put butterfly instead. So I really like how that card turned out as well, using the vintage elements but using bright modern colours, so it gives it that modern twist. Then the final 2, which I was doing this morning, are these 2. So I've got the pieces here. I had been playing around with all of the acrylic mixed media paints from Cosmic Shimmer that come in these little tubs like this, and I had made this wacky background just with like bright yellows, orange, pinks and reds, just literally messing around with different widths of flat brushes and, you know, different amounts of paint on my brush to get these dry sort of brush strokes. And then I just die cut it using that cheesecloth one, and look how beautiful it looks. it instantly turns it into a modern background die, and you would never have thought it was in kind of more like a vintage shabby chic sort of collection. But yeah, it just really turns it into a modern look. And then I've used that butterfly stamp that's in sort of that rectangular-y kind of design with the sort of collaged background. I just stamped it in black and then used some Copics of the same colours as the paints that I used to colour it in, and do some little dots in the background, just to tie all of those colours together. And then I just put the word specimen over the top of the butterfly, but obviously you can add your sentiment there as well if you wanted to, or you could even poke the sentiment coming out of here, or use a die cut or something too. I just think that looks really cool, gives it a really modern twist. And then the final one is another tag, and then this was the background. I was just playing around with the different colours, and I wanted to do one of these spiral kind of designs, almost looking a little bit like tie-dye, and going from red to orange to yellow to green to turquoise to blue, purple, pink, red again. And so I just used part of that to cut my tag out. So just cut that out from there. And then I used again one of those little sort of frame designs. This is the sort of ticket shaped one with the rectangle with the cut off corners. And then I literally just used the same 2 stamps in all 3 of these, but stamped them at different angles to make it look different. So this is that large fern stamp which has a stalk that comes all the way down here, and then this small like cow parsley kind of a stamp, and I've just stamped them all over in different areas. And then this is that small scripty stamp that I had white heat embossed onto that vellum tag earlier, and I've just stamped it in black straight onto that painty background as well. And then I just think it looks really lovely, and then I've just finished it with some black seam binding, but you could use baker's twine as well, and I've just added a bee on there too, and I think that just gives a really nice modern twist to vintagey kind of stamps. So I hope you've enjoyed this up-close video looking at Sam Poole's new collection with creative expressions. Let me know if you like these videos. I know a lot of you do love my up-close videos, whether it's for kits or designer's choice and stuff like that. But if you do love these ones using creative expressions dies, and I'm hopefully going to do some cosmic shimmer ones as well with different products too, like I've done a couple previously. But if you do really enjoy them, do let me know, and if there's anything you really want to see me do a video on, do let me know that as well, because I can't promise I'll get it done, but you know, I'll try my best to do them. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this up-close video, and maybe seeing some different ways you might not have thought of using more vintage style stamps and dies and everything. So hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. I think I've been rabbiting on for quite a while, so it's probably quite a long video. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!